Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions of the thing. If you like the show, you can always remember to subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, like it on the YouTube if you're watching it there, all that fun stuff. Joining me today to round out our run of Star Wars Visions episodes, kind of same cast as last week's episode, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds?
What is going on? We have Frank Bazzani. How you doing, Frank?
Doing good. I'm looking forward to finally closing out the Visions trilogy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, technically nineology, but yeah, we handled it as a trilogy of episodes here as well. And joining us once again, our friend and former nerd from the site, Christian Puente, aka Pixel Brave. How you doing, Christian?
Subscribe or do not. There's no try.
Excellent. Well done, Christian. Way better than any of the ones that Cameron did during our summer of Star Wars.
I greatly disagree. Thank you very much. And by the way, Trevor. By the way, it would be called a nonology.
I know nineology was not the right term.
It
Anyway,
gets the point across, though.
So who's the fool now, Trevor?
I mean, still both of us.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And really anybody listening to us. So sorry to you as well, faithful listener. But yes, as we've touched on today, we're going to be talking about the last 3 episodes of Star Wars Visions, at least the last 3 episodes so far. Still no confirmation on a potential season 2 that I've seen, but hey, maybe like Disney Plus Day is tomorrow as we're recording this, or today, the day this episode goes live. So hey, maybe they will have announced something. Who knows? But as this episode, we'll be discussing The Elder, Lop and Ocho, and Akakiri. Why do we pick it? Again, because kind of holding over from the original ones, because our Summer of Star Wars was a fun series that we did. Anime Star Wars has been really good. So yeah, it's been fun diving into this whole saga of these 9 little Star Wars Visions episodes. A little bit of the history lesson here. Originally released September 22nd, 2021, alongside all of these episodes. Runtime still 15 to 20 minutes per episode. Once again, in the Star Wars timeline of things, this comes between The Bad Batch that came out in May through August of this year. And then we have The Book of Boba Fett coming out December 29th, 2021 into 2022. So a little bit of the roll call here. The Elder was directed and written by Masahiko Otsuka of Studio Trigger, who we've talked about previously, worked on Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, and then they will also be working on the upcoming Cyberpunk Edgerunners series. They also did the Twins episode, right? Is that
yes.
I'm remembering that one
Yes,
correctly from our first part of our Star Wars Visions journey.
Yeah. However, it was a different director and writer.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Same studio, but yes, different. Like they basically got to take on 2 different stories. Lop and Ocho is directed by Yuki Igarashi and written by Yasumi Atarashi and Sayakawa. Sayawaka. Sorry. Yes, yeah. Sayawaka. Mixed a couple of those consonants around. This is Geno Studio, who worked on this one. They are basically a subsect of Twin Engine, who also Studio Colorido of Twin Engine did the Tatooine Rhapsody one. But yes, this is another kind of like, same like parent studio, but Geno Studio. I did not admittedly recognize any of these things, but in there, like, I think I pulled this from their Wikipedia. Koku, Moment by Moment, Golden Kamui, and Pet.
Golden Kamui, yeah.
Golden Kamui? Okay.
Golden Kamui, very popular, very cool stylized anime about a giant treasure hunt going on in northern Japan. during the post-Sino-Russian War, where Japan debuted itself as a world power. And it's about a veteran going on a gold hunt, like a gold expedition hunt with a young Ainu girl. Ainu, of course, being another native people of Japan whose culture they've been isolated and they've preserved their culture to the modern day, although it is disappearing.
All right. Cool. And then rounding out this trilogy of episodes, Akakiri, directed by Yoon Young Choi and written by Yuichiro Kido. This was also done by Science Saru, who we previously spoke to because they worked on Toby, or TOB1, as well as Ino O, Super Shiro, Devilman, Crybaby, and the Food Chain episode of Adventure Time, as I mentioned previously. And that was like, so all three of these are like basically like the studios that got like 2 goes of Star Wars Visions. So that was a cool little thing, and I appreciate that. Like, I would not have known that from the styles of these episodes versus the ones we've already kind of watched, especially this last one that has like I feel like Akakiri in particular has maybe one of the most like Studio Ghibli or like early Studio Ghibli, like in particular I was thinking Nausicaa. Right?
It does give off a bit of a Nausicaa vibe, yeah.
Has that kind of like aesthetic to it. And so yeah, like that knowing that, oh, that's the same team that, you know, worked on the Toby episode, I was like, oh, I definitely would not have pegged those two together. But before we dive into kind of our thoughts on each of them, let's talk about the starring. In The Elder, pulled out 3 kind of the 3 prominent names there. Playing Dan Gavache, we have Jordan Fisher, who people may recognize from To All the Boys I've Loved Before, P.S. I Love You, the middle of the To All the Boys Netflix movies. He was also in Until Dawn, and then he does a lot of Broadway stuff. He's Evan Hansen on Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway currently, I believe, or whenever it comes back. I'm pretty sure he's the one stepping back into that role. David Harbour playing Tajin Kroser, of course, probably best known from Stranger Things, but was also the most recent incarnation of Hellboy. And then James Hong playing the old man, who was from Big Trouble in Little China, as well as Kung Fu Panda, and a myriad of other roles over his significantly tenured career.
He's legitimately like a Hollywood legend when it comes to like breaking through, like breaking down barriers for Asian American roles. He's an awesome dude. Love him to death. Famously underrated role, Balls of Fury.
Yeah, there you go. He plays basically the sensei character in that one, right?
Yep, he does, and it is quite fantastic. It's just like that movie alone. That movie is just a very special film. That I'm not saying it's good, because definitively it is not. But it's one of those movies that has like a lot of like just good comedy. That's just like not even poorly executed. It's well executed. It's just like this movie is just like not of like a good quality. I digress.
Yeah,
I love Balls of Fury. It's a choice.
I'm trying to remember where it ended up ranking in Kinda Funny's Mortal Kombat in Review.
That's right.
Because they included it because Carrie, I forgot his name already, but the guy who played Shang Tsung is basically playing the same kind of role in that, so they counted it as a Mortal Kombat movie for when they had like an extra week to fill before the new Mortal Kombat came out. And it was one of those things I was like, they definitely thought it was a better movie than the Mortal Kombat movies, but was it a better Mortal Kombat movie than the Mortal Kombat movies is where I think where they ended up having to argue that. Anyway, moving on to...
Or as the ancient Chinese used to say, ping pong.
Yes. Lop and Ocho features Anne Cathcart as Lop, another To All the Boys alum, playing the youngest sister. Hiromi Dames playing Ocho, I didn't recognize any particular standouts, but she does have an assortment of voice acting roles in her IMDb. And then Paul Nakauchi playing Yasuburo, who I believe is also in a handful of other. He was in at least one other of the episodes in like a more minor role, and it jumped out at me because he voices Hanzo in Overwatch.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and then on the Akakiri side of things, we have Henry Golding playing Tsubaki, of course, from Crazy Rich Asians, The Gentleman, the most recent Snake Eyes movie that nobody saw.
Yeah.
We have Jamie
Did
Chung.
that come out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It
Yeah.
came out a few months ago.
Wow. Jeez.
Which is so sad because like Henry Golding is such an awesome actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Although he is in a very underrated film. Shoot, he's a gangster in it. It's Matthew McConaughey.
That's The Gentleman.
The Gentleman. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that one. It's fantastic.
Yeah, he was really good in that one. We have Jamie Chung playing Misa, who was in Dragon Ball Evolution. No stranger
Really?
to anime.
That's the thing you pull. That's what you pull. My God, she's Mulan on Once Upon a Time. Like she's
right.
awesome.
Yeah.
She's an awesome actress.
I also pulled in. She's in Sucker Punch. She is Go-Go in Big Hero 6 and Big Hero 6 adjacent things, including Kingdom Hearts 3. And then this I did not catch, or I was not aware of this until looking at her IMDb. She was in Destiny 2. Do you have a guess on who she plays in Destiny 2, Cameron? If you have not looked at the doc.
No, she plays Anna Bray.
Yeah.
So
she does indeed. And then also in here we have George Takei.
But that's only. But here's the thing. That's only.
She's
in
only in
Warmind.
Warmind. Yeah. Yep.
In follow-ups, she's not voiced. She's voiced by Eriki Ishii in follow-ups,
Oh, cool.
including on Mars. The Mars lines when you're there. Well, now it's not important because it's not in Destiny 2 anymore.
I was gonna say I feel like that's probably been vaulted. But yes, George Takei also in here as Shenshu, of course, from Star Trek and a myriad of other things over his long, another groundbreaking Asian American role or performer. A little bit of trivia for these episodes. For the Elder, takes place sometime before the Phantom Menace, obviously, as you know, there are Jedi, but there is, not a Sith presence known among the galaxy. Masahiko Otsuka announced that this would be the final short film on which he would serve as director. However, he added that he might withdraw this decision if they offer him another opportunity on a Star Wars related project. Shout out to that, being like, yeah, I'm retiring. Unless you want to give me more Star Wars, I will continue to play in Star Wars gladly. And then character designer Kanome Shirahama previously illustrated the concepts for the Art FX artist series Kotobukiya statuettes of, and I apologize if I butchered that, of Rey and Kylo Ren. On the Lop and Ocho episode, Lop is a lepi, also known as Lepus carnivorus, the same species as Jaxxon, Jaxxon, the character that first appeared in Marvel Comics Star Wars number 8, published in February of 1978. So just digging super deep for a rabbit alien.
I think they were like, "Yo, are there rabbit aliens?" It's like, I don't know. Let me check the vault.
Yeah, it's like Pablo Hidalgo, I believe, is the encyclopedia of Star Wars stuff, and it's probably like, "Oh yeah, here you go." There and pulled that for him.
It's funny that you guys went that way, because I was like, somebody on the show must have had that comic as a kid and just adored it. And was like, we have to do this.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think I think it was more likely that was the case, that they were like that the fact that there was a rabbit race in Star Wars stuck with somebody's mind, and they carried that through. Takes place allegedly after Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 1 in kind of the flourishing empire. The crest of the family is the same as the Mifune crest in Usagi Yojimbo. I definitely did recognize that the Yojimbo influences from both Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy XIV. The famous line, "I am your father," can be heard thrice throughout the episode. And then lastly, one trivia factoid for Akakiri. This episode was a nod to The Hidden Forest, which gave much inspiration to George Lucas to write Star Wars, of course. So yeah, let's kind of run through these episode by episode, starting with The Elder. Actually, I guess like let's kind of start as like these 3 episodes as a whole compared to the prior to kind of batches that we've sat through. What were people's thoughts on these 3 episodes? I mean, I'll kick this off. Like these are, I really like Lop and Ocho, but the other 2 are probably more like on the lower end of the episodes for me. I did appreciate them, like rewatching them for this compared to like my first viewing of them. In particular, Akakiri, I appreciated as an arguably better Anakin Skywalker type of fall from Revenge of the Sith. Just I think they kind of handle it in a more engaging and interesting way. And he doesn't just murder younglings.
He doesn't just murder children.
Yeah.
How do I know if he's bad though? If
exactly. Like it's pretty simple shorthand. Oh, you murdered kids? Yeah, you're a bad guy now. No coming back from that. But yeah, the Elder is one that's still like I like philosophically. I think I don't know that I like. I like the idea of this young Padawan who's much more interested in the action, especially existing in a time of relative peace, and kind of the older like mentor basically saying like no, like you gotta like that's not how we are, and like then I like kind of the broader like time is the enemy to us all idea of it. But I don't know if it executes on it as well as I would have liked. Like it feels like it's missing elements to that story to have really like resonated with me. But Lop and Ocho is another one with along with like the Ninth Jedi that we talked about last week. I would love to see kind of like that character going and trying to like bring her sister back from the dark. I would love to see kind of like more stories of the 2 of them feuding. And I also like it touches on an aspect that I really like that we're getting a little bit of in the Bad Batch, but this aspect of like how does the Empire become ingrained in societies? And they make a great case of like, hey, like they're bringing a lot of good to this community, to this. I mean, they're bringing like commerce and they're bringing like advancement to this planet. And you just kind of have to, sell your soul for it. But if you don't like that might be the better alternative for a lot of people. And so I like that it more than a lot of the other episodes kind of delves into that morality kind of aspect of it. But yeah, overall, I would say these are probably the weakest 3 of the 3 batches that we've done. But I do really like Lop and Ocho. Frank, what were your thoughts on these 3?
I'm pretty much right there with you. Like overall, I did really enjoy the episodes. But I'm kind of with you there where like Akakiri and the Elder are probably like mid or like lower tier for me. And then even though I do really like Lop and Ocho, it is like that these 3 episodes as a whole, like are kind of like probably we like you said, if you're kind of breaking them up and ranking the 3 we kind of broke out, this would probably be the bottom for me. But it's like Lop and Ocho for me in particular was the one that I really liked, especially because like the animation in that episode is beautiful, and it reminded me a lot of when like it reminded me of being a kid, and then when you go from like watching an anime show on TV to then you go see the anime movie. And like the backgrounds and everything are so beautiful and detailed and everything's just like so stylized. Like I really felt like the animation just felt so good there. And that's why I'm totally with you too, where I would love to just see that adventure kind of continue forward and keep going if they ever wanted to continue that or do like another episode in season 2 or something. I'm also 100% with you on like the Elder, where like I like the ideas and I like the concepts and I like the idea too of the like as you get older, you kind of get weaker, and you maybe even like are just like obviously not as powerful, and you may even have some issues with like the Force. But as opposed to just it always being like, yeah, this person's 1,000, and they're actually stronger than they were before, and like, so I kind of appreciate that some of those ideas being kind of like brought in and played with. But like, I'm with you where like it kind of feels like it's missing a couple elements, and they probably didn't execute 100% on it, especially because like it's a slow burn, but it kind of just doesn't go anywhere. Like, and I'm all for a slow burn. Like it's a little bit different, but we were talking a little while ago about how much we love Dune, and I was like, yeah, Dune's incredible, but it's a slow burn, but it's like it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're taking on all this information, and you take on a lot of information in that episode, but it's like it doesn't really like go anywhere. And I think they wanted the big climax to be sort of the fight at the end, but I felt like that like didn't really hit for me in like a ton of ways like they probably wanted it to. Although I did think the lightsabers in that one are really cool, because if I remember correctly, it's been a little while since I've seen it, but he has kind of another one of those where they make it more like a blade.
Yeah.
And it's more like a katana, and like every time they did that in these episodes, I love that. Like I love it being more like the lightsaber being more of like a katana or like a blade, and that's always a win for me.
Yeah. Even in Lop and Ocho, the lightsaber even has like the runes or the is it kanji? It has like the language on it, on like that is like bleeding onto the lights. I love that in a cool, interesting way. Cool. Christian, how about you?
Yeah, I do agree with y'all for the most part, like that these three don't hit collectively as much, but at the same time it feels fine to end this way with these three. Like it kind of, as far as pacing goes, which is something interesting like to consider, like if you're gonna have an anthology, like yeah, how do you pace it? And like I think if you were to stack all like the big hitters at the end, like that would be cool, but at the same time there's something weird about the pacing of like maybe a whiplash of like ending with the Ninth Jedi, Lop and Ocho, and like and the duel or something like that, like all ending with that, like, and then just like nothing after that, like it feels like whiplash. So like having these kind of slower, quieter stories as the ending seems still like I like how it ends.
Yeah.
That series.
It's almost I wonder if they had switched Lop and Ocho and Akakiri, what the meant, like what walking away from that would feel like. Especially Akakiri kind of ending as like one of the arguably saddest endings of the series. It's like, oh, that's the opposite of like send him home happy kind of mentality. It's just like, oh, that like everything's terrible, and like this guy is just going to go down the dark path.
It reminded me of like when I finished a Black Mirror season. Like I'm like, it was good, but now I'm sad. Like I'm not having like a good time.
Yeah, there's quality there, but I feel terrible. Yeah. Cool. Cameron, how about you?
So just a quick comment. So the writing on the blade is not actually kanji, but it's Star Wars language design. Like the Star Wars language itself is like not too far from it.
Okay.
But
is it like the Arabesh or whatever? Arakesh? It didn't look like it.
Oh no! So the Star Wars writing, basically somebody took the Star Wars writing like style and like made it look like kanji.
Okay.
Is what they did, which is cool in and of itself. I actually
is what I was looking for.
Yeah. I really enjoy these 3 episodes. Honestly, I think I've said it before, like spoilers, like this entire series of episodes from its lowest to its highest point, I think have all been absolute slam dunks, grand slams out of the park, nailing it every time. To see it's so amazing, especially after watching the 9 canonical Star Wars films, seeing a set of 9 episodes be truer to the spirit of Star Wars than than 6 of those
things
movies.
we sat through. Yeah,
yeah, they have like the half of the movies. But I say that, but I mean, in the, like the problems with the prequels are the problems with the prequels, which aren't like they were still Star Wars. But like a lot of like I didn't realize how much I missed Star Wars because I was like, some of Star Wars, what a great way to kind of capstone and be like, yeah, Star Wars is great, but like it's like
it was
cool.
like 3 weeks of Star Wars that you were like really into, and then like
Yeah.
2.5 months of like, oh yeah, these things are also called Star Wars, with
For-
like
for me,
a few
yeah.
highlights here and there, kind of thing.
For me, like honestly, Rise of Skywalker is just such a like for Rise of Skywalker to be the capstone of the entire like 9 trilogy, like 9 film franchise. The it's like if you want to know how I feel about that, go watch that episode or listen to that episode, because I rail that movie over. Like I put it over the barrel and I just go to town on it. Gosh, I like anyway. But onto a more of a positive note here.
I was gonna say when we talked about the Elder earlier, I was like, yeah. And apparently, when you get old, you get weaker, and then when you die, you just kind of turn into rubble. Or if we go back to like Rise of Skywalker, no, you just kind of like you can like regrow your fingers back with the power of the dark side, and then you'll disintegrate again.
The whole like the thing about it is like not that none of that is, as somebody who read the expanded universe canon before the legending, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
like not surprised, not even fazed by that sort of shit. No, I think really when it comes down to it is like I love these episodes because these 3 episodes especially I really really enjoy because each of them does something very different, which is I loved seeing like the master student story of the Elder. Like the Elder is a and this is kind of the idea is like the dark side may have kept the Elder alive for a very long time and kept him powerful, but it was unnatural, like it wasn't right. And so when he loses control of the Force and when he's killed, he turns to dust. Like, yeah, he might have been keeping himself alive, but look what kind of life he was living. Like, is that really the path you want to go down? And so the master being somebody who accepts age and death is like, it's fun because I'm like, oh, this is very reminiscent of like expanded universe, like the books and stuff, Qui-Gon in a lot of ways, with Obi-Wan and like in the old Obi-Wan like novelizations post episode 1 that came out, which are just like absolute bangers of books. Like every single one of them's absolutely stellar, to the point where like the Clone Wars cartoon like took a bunch of ideas from it too, and turned into like backstory for Obi-Wan in later seasons. There's so many cool and awesome things about that kind of like that mentor mentee father son, like this idea of this master and apprentice style relationship that gets done in a really lot of cool ways in this episode. Whether it's nice seeing like a Padawan who is not the stereotypical, is he driven? Is he hot-blooded? Sure, but he's also kind and tender-hearted, and and this community, and I love it because they're like, why is this community so rural, like ancient Japan? Because they don't like people. They don't like people. They don't like technology. Stay away. And I'm like, first off, love it. Love that idea and aspect of it being like, this is a rural place because of it. It's undeveloped because of it. And the master, like telling the Padawan, like, yeah, like this is a hard place to like get into. I love that aspect of the Jedi out there not being space cops, but being like space monks and actually going around and like doing things that aren't because we're here because we've been sent by the Prime Chancellor to solve this problem. It's not a mission. It's just a thing that they're doing. On the flip side of that, I loved Lop and Ocho. Lop and Ocho might, like I mentioned in the Ninth Jedi, like it's I know are we just doing these, like, are we going to go into each of the episodes individually after this or no?
Yeah.
Oh, we are? Cool. Taking a bunch back here. I'm just going to say these 3 episodes are absolutely banging. What a great like capstone. I actually kind of really like the idea of like, we're not ending it on a happy note. Like, this is what the animation studio decided to do. It was a bold decision.
We're gonna leave you with that same feeling you walked out of Rise of Skywalker with.
Except done much better. And you feel sad for good reasons, not feel sad for bad reasons. Not love it. Love these 3 episodes. Love that it's the capstone of this incredible venture. I pray that we'll see another one, but at the same time, like, maybe it just can be on its own and be special for a very long time. I'm good either way. But yeah, that's kind of like my brief summary of the 3 episodes.
Cool. So yeah, then let's circle back around to the Elder. Cam, you give I think probably a lot of your kind of impressions already, but if you have anything you want to add to it before we
Sure.
Switch to somebody else.
Sure.
Yes, yeah.
To kind of wrap up my thoughts on the Elder, it's great to see a story about just the natural flow of life, which is something that we've seen in previous episodes follow through here, and a much more like character level. It's not as broad or grand as like The Bride. And this kind of idea of the Force being this thing that is like part of nature, and it is nature, it is life. And the idea, it's like when you choose to stagnate it, when you choose to like use it for your own gain rather than just being a part of it and being a part of the greater whole, it twists you, and it makes you a decrepit little old man who is super fucking creepy. I will say the last thing I want to say is the artwork in this episode is absolutely awesome. In total like contrast with the twins episode, you get like just a much more like older like Gren Lagann style like animation style versus kind of the Promare style that they're known for, and Kill la Kill style that they're known for now. Like it's very cool to see that. Yeah, and that's kind of like my thoughts. Like, just awesome. Also, English cast is stupendous. Love it.
Cool. Yeah, on this one, it's, I think Frank kind of mentioned it earlier. Like, it is very slow going on this one. In particular, like I think back on like just how long we spend on the ship before we even get to the planet, and kind of the back and forth that they have. I don't know if you said something there, Cam. You were muted, but
I did. I whispered to the audience member, "I love
oh,
that."
okay. Yeah,
all the slow burn stuff, I fucking love.
Yeah,
even if it doesn't go anywhere, I love it.
And that like that's my issue, is that it felt like it didn't really go anywhere. Like we get this whole like backstory of the David Harbour's character has probably been to more Outer Rim planets than any Jedi ever. But what did that really do for him, I guess? Like how did that help kind of what we get from him the rest of the time? I will say though, that I'm always a fan of his type of killing blow, where lightsabers off and then like just stick it up to somebody's chest and bust it on and boom, just burn a hole through their chest. Loved it when they did it in Last Jedi, and love it again here. Even if I felt like Dan suddenly still being alive felt like like not unearned, because I don't think there's enough time to have earned it or not earned it, but it felt like they didn't really set up the possibility that he was still alive. It was like, oh, it looked like he pretty clearly got like sliced in half by the bad guy, and as a bad guy as that is, it feels like he would have been a little more thorough in his murderous ways. But maybe he was just cocky and figured he did the job, and now he's going to go kill the real challenge.
I took it as bait, because he follows his students, where it's like he follows the Force, like the Force sensitivity of where he can feel his student, and it draws him to where the Elder's waiting to fight him. I kind of took that as like I've maimed your Padawan, now come to me, as kind of a thing. That's kind of how I took it in the afterwards, because I also was surprised that he was alive.
Yeah.
But when I thought about it, it's like, well, why would that guy keep him alive? And it's like, oh, that makes sense, because this is a sadistic piece of shit who, like 100% would keep this kid alive, like dangling by his last lifeline. And Dan 100% is like the kind of kid who would, like use like the last bit of his strength to help out his master. So
Yeah, just a perfect javelin throw, his lightsaber for distraction. Cool.
It's so true. I love it.
Frank, any other thoughts from you on The Elder?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with both of you, because like a lot of things that Cam said he liked about it are the things that I liked and thought were just cool about the episode. But like kind of like we've been talking about some of the just the pacing, and even just like with it not really building to anything, or like even just kind of it being too much of a slow burn the whole time, I is kind of some of my main problems with it. And just like some of the things you were highlighting, like I still like it as an episode and it's fun, but it's also one that if you think about like rewatching it, I'm not like, oh, I really want to rewatch that, you know, especially because like now I know what's going to happen, but it's also like, oh, it's not like this crazy reveal or build up, but like there's these other episodes like the duel or like the Ninth Jedi that I would just watch like over and over again. But one of the other things I would give a shout out to that even Cam pointed out is I do like how different the animation is for still being from Studio Trigger. Like that is still super cool to see them kind of really do those two totally different styles, and still kind of bust out that older style, kind of like you said. So like I just think that's super cool, because if you weren't necessarily told that this was the same studio, you wouldn't really know. Like it just seems like it would be two totally different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick before we throw to you, Christian, one other thing that I thought about, kind of going off of, or it popped in my head, is while I like Jordan Fisher and David Harbour as performers, I was not a fan of the direction of their performances in this, and it speaks to probably a larger issue of why, by and large, Jedi just being the most Jedi that they can be are kind of boring. Is like they're so muted and stoic in their performance, and even in their like back and forth and like the little bits of banter they have, it feels like weirdly cold and unnatural, and like they're not really like friendly in any way. And if that's a matter of like, oh, well, they're playing that like you shouldn't have attachments and like being Jedi to the extreme or whatever, it's like, well, that's why Jedi suck. And that's why Jedi are boring characters, is because they don't have wants or desires or bonds or, you know, friendships or something like that. And that's like in some of their back and forth in particular, there's like one line where they're on the ship or something, where like I don't remember, like Dan says something sarcastically, but it like doesn't even come across that he's being sarcastic until he has to say I was being sarcastic. And then like and then David Harbour's just like, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. But just in like the driest, most monotone kind of way that's like, that was clearly meant to be a joke, but it didn't have the cadence and delivery of a joke. And so like that is another thing that like this episode, I think more than any other across these episodes, was the one where I was like, maybe the Japanese track is you know, more vibrant and more alive, but like it felt like this was the most quote unquote phoned in of the performances. And I know, like, obviously I know that, again, both of those actors, neither of them are going to be people who are going to phone in a performance. I'm sure both of them were incredibly ecstatic to be playing Jedi. It strikes me as that I liken it to whenever I think of Snow in Final Fantasy 13 and that saga. Like Snow, voiced by Troy Baker, a very likable and charismatic actor, and Snow is just one of the most boring characters I've ever experienced in a Final Fantasy game. And so I chalk that up to like, this is how they were directed. They could have been, you know, more animated, more lively, and I don't think they were asked to or expected to. And that definitely like is probably a large factor of why this episode in particular just doesn't really rub me the right way. Christian, what were your thoughts on The Elder?
Overall, I like it. I mean, I do like relate to like what Frank was saying about not probably wanting to rewatch this, which I wouldn't have predicted going into Visions as a whole, because Studio Trigger is one of my top favorite anime, studios and groups, and like I love just everything they made, because typically like the studio's Trigger's MO is like always everything turned up to 11, everything just as big, as loud, as stylized as you can go. And so this was very different, and so I was just really interested, it was really just interesting in general to see this different side of them, which Cam mentioned earlier, it's a different director, and that's definitely a big reason why most of the Studio Trigger animations that I liked and love are from the previous director, Imaishi. And although I've seen this director Otsuka's work before too, he's done some Fully episodes and stuff like that, which is another one of my favorite shows. Oops, I gotta slow down. I heard myself talking too fast. But I'm less familiar with his work, and so it was interesting to see this different side of Trigger. And I watched all the behind the scenes for all of these, and I guess hearing the creators talk about how it was very purposeful, that they wanted to have a really slow start and just not exactly slice of life, but really focus more on just the relationship and the simple conversations. Like, I guess that affected me. And so like when I do rewatch it, because I have seen it a few times, because I like watching reactions to these episodes, and so I guess I've retroactively given it a bit more of a pass on that. But I do understand that it's not maybe as action packed as we would hope, or not even action packed, but it's slow. But overall, I do like it for the philosophy that it brings up at the end. I think that's something that's pretty universal, that Star Wars fans can gravitate to, but pretty much anyone who watches this and appreciates storytelling, not too many stories stop to point out, like, hey, that's right, there's some universal truths out there that, like time as, this unstoppable force that we all got to deal with eventually.
It's definitely, we don't get that kind of expressed in the relationship between a master and his Padawan, largely because we get very few of those actual relationships, especially in the original trilogy. And then in the prequels, of course, like all of those trainings are cut short by war and then Order 66. So yeah, it's not something that like it's not something that they delve into really. And you get the idea of like, oh yeah, like maybe the David Harbour character will just kind of pass from old age someday, and his legacy, for a lack of a better, more appropriate aspect, would be like the character of Dan, just being like carrying on his work in the Outer Rim or something like that.
I would love to see a sequel episode where it's Dan and then Ghost Master that's like following him around.
Maybe not even a Ghost Master, just the idea of like
I get
what like if Dan survives Order 66, does he just go around being kind of like doing the same thing, just unofficially?
I mean,
in general, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like in the timeline of things, like it's the trivia says it takes place before Phantom Menace. I look at it as like many years before Phantom Menace, like that I would not have expected either of those characters to be around when Order 66 comes around. Like I and that's just like my own headcanon. I put this like hundreds of years before we get Darth Plagueis the Wise and Sheev Palpatine.
Yeah. I'll say two more things. One was, in general, it's cool to see a healthy overall relationship between a Padawan and Master. Like, so often, Anakin rolls his eyes or doesn't like anything Obi-Wan wants to tell him. Even though Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, were a bit more compatible, Obi-Wan didn't understand. He'd like, I don't get why you don't, follow the rules. You would be on the council now. He'd tell us that to Qui-Gon. And there's just, Star Wars has a lot of pairs of masters and students who just, butt heads on. So this was actually kind of, I think that's why I liked that message at the end, is that like, there's a bit of an arc, here. Dan is excited for adventure. He gets his opportunity for it and fails. And, his master says like, hey, you weren't strong enough now. but that's just for now. You will get stronger, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
it's a just different dynamic compared to other student master relationships we've seen.
Yeah, I certainly can't pull the names involved, but it like the opening of the episode where Dan is like very excited for action or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like it immediately reminded me of an early Clone Wars episode where there's like a Mon Calamari Padawan or something like that, and he's like super
Mm-hmm.
excited to get into the action. I don't remember who his master was, if it was like Luminara or something like that.
It was Kit Fisto.
Was it Kit Fisto? Cool.
Underwater master, underwater student.
Cool. And like he basically just gets slaughtered by Grievous, I think, because he was headstrong and cocksure kind of thing. And we get like almost the same kind of arc, except that again, like Dan miraculously survives, and so he does, get to learn from his mistakes, or the help of like the village that brings him back, and he gets to kind of like carry that with him moving forward. So it diverts enough from that Clone Wars story. So cool.
Yeah, and the last point I was gonna make, which I'll try to keep it very short, is just that like I really enjoyed overall. We didn't bring it much to attention to it, but just the kind of storytelling that it was, in that they're both unaware that the Sith is a presence. But we've seen several movies where the Jedi think they're extinct, and so it's a unique experience. It's what I liked about this viewing experience is that like us, the audience, we know already that the Sith is out there. That as soon as they're like, we feel something dark, we'll see what it is. As soon as we hear dark, we're like, okay, we know what's waiting for them. And so it's interesting seeing these. It kind of reminds us like of how unaware the Jedi were in Phantom Menace. Like we're kind of seeing that again. And so it's just kind of waiting for them to realize, waiting for them to catch up with us, the audience, on what is actually waiting for them. I really liked that part of the storytelling.
Yeah. Veb was the Mon Calamari apprentice. Rest in peace. So moving on to Lop and Ocho. Christian, let's kick it off with your thoughts on Lop and Ocho.
Oh, I actually just rewatched this one today too. And this one's one of my top ones up there. I think a lot of people have mentioned that because everything from the storytelling to the art direction is just it. I gotta pick what I'm gonna talk about. I'll talk about the story first. It's a cool seeing like this found family dynamic and seeing how it changes, and it is. I'll try not to make this too political, but seeing how politics can tear a family apart is kind of really relatable to especially these days, and how we see family be pulled for different directions, even if seemingly well-intentioned. Sometimes the dark side pulls people we care about, and it is a very difficult thing to face and know how you want to try to save them or talk them out of it, but it's a heavy subject. So it was a really interesting story, and to tie it all off, like on top of it all, just gorgeous. It definitely, from the minute we saw like the frames of this in the trailer, I was immediately, in Ratatouille when he has the flashback when he eats the ratatouille. I was in a mall in FYE looking at the back of anime boxes with cyberpunk aesthetics and like the grain, and it just really did a great job of emulating that older style of animation. And so it's a beautiful story to experience and watch.
Very cool. Cameron, you were like chomping at the bit there to jump on what Christian was talking about, so I'll throw it to you next.
Dude, 100% politics, tearing families apart, like creating these like awkward Cold War situations within the family, like 1,000%. There's a rule that we no longer bring up politics because it upsets members of our family at my house, at my parents' house. Like when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like it was like a big realization for me. Like, oh man, that's totally what it is. It's great. Gosh, yeah. I remember last week I said that the Ninth Jedi's animation style reminded me a lot of Tenchi Muyo, and kind of like that older '90s anime aesthetic. Like being an FYE looking at the back of anime boxes, 100% like right there with you, man. Except I was at a Suncoast video at
I went to Suncoast too.
Yeah, Suncoast Video at the not Santan Mall, but the Fiesta Mall in Mesa, Arizona. Like 100%, like knew how many minutes it took me to get from the front door to Suncoast to buy the edited DBZ videos because they were half off the price of the unedited ones. Shout out to Suncoast for just like being like the dopest place. Yeah, like I like 100%. This reminds me of like older anime styles. Whether it's like not as old, like late 80s, early 90s as like Akira, but definitely feels like within that era of like Tenchi Muyo. Ranma and a half. Oh, Ranma and a half is like a little bit more of that Akira like era of animation. But like when they like the way that they were able to introduce grain and other things like that into the animation style to, gosh, it's like it really hit me in the nostalgia for this episode. Like this episode just is 100% there with that kind of aesthetic. Once again, to bring up Tenchi Muyo, like this like feels so. I don't know if it's just like light swords in anime that just reminds me of Tenchi Muyo, but there's just such a great feel of these characters, and I honestly do not think that there may not be a cooler sequence of animation than when Ocho like leaves the family.
Mm.
When she bites her thumb and like does the eyeshadow thing with the blood and then cuts off the top knot, and I'm watching it, I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing for me, but that's a thing for me. Cool. Okay. Like beautiful art or beautiful art, like animation design, beautiful sequencing, and like, you know, choreography with just a single moment being so detailed and so methodical in what they're doing, but at the same time being like incredibly powerful and feminine in a really cool moment where so much of Star Wars is, I feel like, very strongly non-binary, male leaning, and very few times do we ever get to see like a strong feminine aspect to the franchise. And so getting to see that here in this moment with just like a very powerful like statement, like cutting off the knot in the hair, deeply symbolic of samurai family culture of like leaving behind your family, is really cool symbology that they use there, as well as just I don't know what the eye thing was with the blood, but it was cool as hell.
I think it was just like, hey, we're hardcore. Like,
yeah,
hey,
she's hardcore, man. She's hardcore. She's joining the Empire. She's hardcore. And then, but when you see her again, and oh my gosh, when she flips out after seeing Lop with the sword, with the lightsaber,
yeah,
and she's like, "What?" Like, and all of a sudden, it's just like, "Oh my god, you little, like, you suck. You suck. You, like." Was she ever your sister? Was she more like, did you ever treat her as more than a pet, like an actual member of the family? Like, what's your deal? Like, what the heck? Freaky. But then it gets like it's my birthright, and yet I'm like, you cut your hair yourself, Ocho. Like you brought this on yourself. And it's like, I love the emotion and the passion and everything going on in that episode. And to top it off, just like the Easter eggs on top of Easter eggs. Where is the sword? Like, why do we have this lightsaber? Well, it came from an ancient warrior known as a Jedi, who, gave it to our ancestor. But before he did that, he taught him how to use it. And he goes, now I'm passing it on to you. You're now the heir of the family. And it's just like, first off, rad as hell moment. Like, also, shout out to the Usagi Yojimbo, Easter eggs. Love them. Because Usagi Yojimbo, if you haven't read it, it is the GOAT of old school graphic novels. There's so much about this episode that just strikes me as being very emotional and emotional, action packed, and really flies by the seat of its pants on a lot of stuff. But I think like what Trevor said earlier, like it really talks about, hey, what does the Empire offer places that the Republic kind of like didn't give a shit about? These, and it reminds me of old EU literature where they talk about like the benefits of the Empire, like what the benefits have it, because at the end of the day, like the Empire may have been like a fascist, Nazi nightmare, but for people who lived in absolute anarchy and chaos before that, it brought order to their worlds, it brought trade and commerce, and there's a lot of things about it that the Empire, like quote unquote, what the Empire has to offer, but what do you have to give up for it? It's great. It totally touches on it. Once again, these episodes, all 9 of these episodes, carrying the spirit of Star Wars in such a strong and wonderful way, each of them individually in different aspects of the storytelling of Star Wars, not just as a film, film tri-trilogy, or nonology, or whatever you want to call it.
A trilogy.
Yeah, trilogy. A tri-trilogy.
Trilogy squared.
But also as like old EU stuff, old like video games, like the idea of like Star Wars as a source of media and literature and art, and it's conveyed in such an amazing way. And I feel like this is probably, in my opinion, out of these 3 episodes, the strongest of that. As much as I love The Elder, and I love Akakiri, the next episode, this one I think is probably the defining torch-bearing episode of all 9 for like what I want to see going forward. Like, I don't get me wrong, it's not my favorite episode, but if you were to ask me, hey Cameron, what's probably the best episode to carry on and do like a series with, I would probably say this over Ninth Jedi, even though I like Ninth Jedi more. I think that Lop and Ocho has a good deal more heart than Ninth Jedi had, which, Ninth Jedi had a really cool story and intrigue and really cool action lightsaber combat stuff, but there's something about the 2 girls, Lop and Ocho, and like they're being tied together by family, like by being family with one another, by destiny, by the Force, whatever you want to, like whatever aspect you want to look at it with. I think that this is probably like that standout episode. Like, this is probably your best shot at a backdoor pilot.
I mean, that's a lot of words to say. Cam wants to see more blood eyeshadow.
Hey! I don't think we've established it before, but that D+ show, like all that nerdy site product, is a no kink zone. Okay.
No kink shaming. Yeah, no. I mean,
no kink. I said no kink zone. Sorry. No. We're for sure a kink zone. That's for sure. We're for sure a kink zone. I exist here.
I'm just saying, like, own it. You don't need to come up with all this like excuse of like why you really think that's a better backdoor pilot. It's just you want to see more blood eyeshadow. I get it.
I mean, but who doesn't? Like, that was like, even if it's like that wasn't hot to you, that was still like such an awesome scene, such a kick-ass scene that like establishes her as like an actual like badass in like the most mundane way possible. Like, so fucking cool.
I'll jump in and then we'll throw it to you, Frank, to wrap up on this episode. One of the things I love about this episode that we don't get across the rest of the series is the time jump. So we get kind of the prologue of them as kids, and then we get to jump ahead 10 years or however long it is, and we kind of see and can kind of like fill in the gaps, but because of that, Lop, Ocho, and the dad all have a significantly larger character arc than anybody else that we get across these 9 episodes, in that the dad comes fully around on accepting Lop as his own daughter, from like not wanting anything to do with her and wanting to dismiss her. Lop buys in fully to that, like the family dynamic and the love for both of them. And then Ocho goes from like loving and wanting like a sister in Lop. And yeah, you kind of made the point earlier, Cam, of like, did she really want a sister, or did she want a pet rabbit girl, because she's a spoiled rich kid or whatever. But
I was about to say, who doesn't want a pet rabbit girl?
I think I think from at least from like the intro we get of them kind of after the time jump, that like there was a bond there, but yeah, it is the politics that drove a wedge between between Ocho and her father, and and I love that like they both want what's best for the planet still, they just think there are different ways of going about it, and they're diametrically opposed to thinking that the Empire can provide what is best for their people and the planet. And so yeah, I think
Also, it proved that Lop proved that being a centrist doesn't do you any good.
I mean she got a lightsaber out of it, so
That's only when she came around to like the other side of things, though.
oh yeah, fair. So yeah, I really like this episode. And that's not even diving into like the beautiful animation that has already been kind of touched on. I love even just like little things, like when I was rewatching it, like after Lop is like fleeing, and Ocho is kind of like turned to the dark side. I love this. I like Lop just like is trying to escape and just like slips and falls, like arguably to her death, but you know she's clearly force sensitive, so saved by the day or whatever. But like just like that, they didn't need that element. It could have like she could have either just gotten away or she could have just been fleeing in the market or something. But like this literal fall from like the highborn society kind of thing to she kind of has to now go and slum it with her dad, because that's how they're seen kind of in this new order. I kind of love the symbolism of that, I guess. And then yeah, the like I alluded to it last week, but like I love that until you get to that like the handing of the lightsaber kind of thing, it is just a like, oh, there isn't Jedi in this story. And even like arguably by the end of the episode, still no Jedi. She's clearly force sensitive, and if Jedi were around in this society, she would probably be trained as a Jedi or whatever. But I love that. Yeah, it is just kind of like more of a interpersonal struggle and strife, and the resistance mentality versus the the dominant empire kind of coming to play in a just cool and engaging way. So yeah, huge fan of that episode, and just how like loving and heartfelt the dad is, even in that like final battle of like not like his refusal to like fight his daughter, and like the desire and the request of Lop to like, you're the only one that can bring her back, please bring her back. It's just it's lovely, and it's that like the Obi-Wan and Anakin dynamic, and Anakin's fall from grace, but done better. So yeah, really enjoyed Lop and Ocho. So Frank, close us out on that episode.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what's already been said about it, because it's a beautiful episode with the animation, and I really like the story. I think it's one of the strongest ones, especially when just out of these three, as we're kind of comparing them. One of the things I was going to bring up, you kind of hinted at it there, is like I did also like that it ends in like a bummer note. Like it doesn't really have like the happy ending. Like obviously we think like that story could continue and it could end happily, but I love that it doesn't really end the kind of the time we spend with it. And that's kind of interesting that these back three are all kind of like bummers in their own way, and especially if anything, they just kind of get sadder as you kind of go through them. But that's what like is interesting about it, is that I thought is that it doesn't have to have that like the happy ending, especially for like the happy like art style it kind of has, like it, but you still kind of have this like real heartfelt story that doesn't have like this like perfect happy ending. And yeah, one of the other things I love a lot about it, one of the things I did love is the lightsaber and the way it's like passed down from like generations, and it's just kind of like a legend, and like it has like mythology, and it's like and kind of goes into that thing about how like they are almost like out here on this like smaller planet or this outer rim, like this place that's like they're not in this giant thing necessarily that's like, oh yeah, and obviously I mean we don't know what time it takes place, but they're not like, oh yeah, Order 66 and Palpatine and all, like they don't know all. They're just like, yeah, there was a Jedi, one guy came here hundreds of years ago, and we've just passed this down for generations since then. Like, I think that's super cool. And I still think it's super cool too to just like we've talked about already, we like to see the effects of kind of the Empire on some of these planets as well.
And I also like, even thinking on that, it's like, oh, like, did that Jedi actually like leave them the lightsaber, or did they get it through illicit means, and like the story has just like morphed and changed over the history of it? Because like, I mean, the dad is kind of like an underworld boss type character at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, he's not
Yeah.
he's not like the greatest guy, but he is like looking out for his city, more so than the Empire would. So yeah, there's that aspect of it too, of like Jedi typically don't just like hand off their lightsabers without good reason. So
I didn't take him as being like an underworld boss. I took him as being like a magistrate, and then later like a labor organizer.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I definitely caught similar vibes as Trevor.
I mean, like,
as,
maybe I'm
not literally Yakuza, but something maybe like an older version of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I think of whenever I see like a feudal anime, like I hear often, you know, the leader referred to as boss, like in like whatever the feudal crime syndicate is. So that's why particular that use of boss is what took me there.
Yeah. And his look, having like the scarred eye and stuff. It's like,
I just think
the
you
visual
guys are
storytelling
falling to aesthetic bias right here.
It's it immediately, like, as I started to think about that, I was like, yeah, no, I definitely put like thoughts on that because of his appearance, and you know, shame on me for that.
There you go. I'm
just
just saying,
I consider it. I mean,
but the thing is that like in those old feudal stuff, they refer to like the local magistrate as boss sometimes, like especially if they're not exactly on like the up and up. But yeah, like a magistrate is like not like a lord or anything. It's just like a government official.
Yeah,
I kind of took him as like he's like the head. He's the head labor dude. Especially because later he basically organizes like an armed strike at the factory. So
yeah. Well, let us wrap up then with Akakiri. Frank, kick us off on Akakiri.
Yeah, I like this episode too. I thought it was kind of interesting to end on this one, but I don't know like what other one you would end on, you know. But I thought it was I thought the coolest thing about it was definitely the ending, and it's another one that kind of almost, I feel like, has a little bit of that slow burn to almost get there. But I like the way that they set it up a lot more than like the way that they do in the Elder. Like, I like that he's kind of having these visions, but he kind of doesn't like get the full scope of it. And then by the time we get to the end of the episode, you realize it kind of wraps back around, and then you actually understand like what is all has like happened, and like the decision has now been made, and now he's like over here on this like dark side. And now that's kind of another one that like I would be curious to see it continue if they did like an season 2 or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily want like a whole series, but if they wanted to continue that, I would definitely be curious to see where that goes. But there's also some other times where it's like tries to be, I think, a little bit more cartoony and funny in like some places too. That doesn't necessarily work for me. It reminded me a little bit of like, and this isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but it reminded me of like the Avatar cartoon, like where some of those like side characters and they're like jokey and goofy, and like it's like, and it's not even, like I said, it's not like it's bad, but it's also just like it didn't like work 100% for me in like that comedy capacity sometimes.
Yeah, the two kind of like guide characters, immediately like I start thinking of like the cabbage salesman from Avatar, or or like the people who like fought Toph for like the championship belt or whatever, like the other earthbenders that are, you know, like more on the wrong side of the law kind of guys, or even Jet's gang, like they kind of have that aspect as well. So yeah, like that, they definitely, I absolutely kind of echo what you touched on there, Frank. Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it for me there because I feel like I didn't have a ton of thoughts on that one necessarily. Although the art style in that one is also really cool.
Mhm.
And then I had already kind of touched on the ending there, but I thought the ending was really cool, probably the highlight for me. And even some of the action you see there is also really cool too, and like really beautifully done.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that would probably just be my ending sentiments.
Cool. I'll go. I don't have like crazy strong feelings on this one. I do appreciate the use of the like, oh, this vision, and it's very murky, and as we get like further and further, it becomes clearer and clearer, but it's still never clear enough to like tell him what's going on in that moment. And even if it were, the girl is like put in a mask to kind of like hide her identity from him anyway. And even I didn't catch it the first time around, but I definitely like I watched it and I was like, well, but why was she fighting him? And you see like on a rewatch or whatever, like, oh, she's her body's very much being like force controlled, and like she's kind of being puppeteered into the action there, to be like slashed at in his fit of rage. Um, uh, so yeah, I appreciate that it is the Sith kind of using like a Jedi's vulnerability. It's the end of Empire, or it's do we get this in the sequel trilogy anywhere? No, it's the end of Empire, or it's Anakin's visions of Padme in pain or something like that. It's that, but
Mhm.
like using that as a tactic and a weapon, a la Vader trapping Han and Carbonite, in a again much more interesting way than I think Revenge of the Sith ultimately like executes on that same idea. And the idea of the main guy like siding with evil to bring his love, or his whatever his attachment to that character is, to like bring her back, knowing that like she would never forgive him for what he is doing and what he will do, is it's a tragic kind of sacrifice in that regard, as well. So like I like it, even if I feel like everything kind of leading up to it didn't really hit for me or didn't work for me. The final moment is certainly a compelling one for me. Christian, how about you?
It man, it's cool, and I'm surprised how much I liked it. When I saw like some of the clips from it in the trailer, I was like, oh, I'm probably not gonna feel this one because it I it's one of the, anime has such a diverse styles, and even the same studio has so many different character designs and approaches to visual storytelling and design and everything. But still, usually there is a certain look that comes to mind when you think of anime, even though there are many outliers. And this is an example of an outlier. Like, more international animations are being screened, and like this reminds me of some of those. Like in the approach, like I would have, if you had said, "Is this a Japanese animation?" I would have guessed first that it was from somewhere else, France, Germany, somewhere else, that like where animation is starting to really take off. But no, it's a Japanese animation, and just like, but because where I'm going with that is that because it didn't look typical anime, like I thought maybe it wouldn't feel as anime, but it absolutely like delivers on that. The storytelling is very mature. Like there's that part where one of the guides gets lost, and the other guy's like, "Hey, that's his time. It happened. We lose people sometimes, and like we gotta watch ours." And like so, and he's like kind of, and I was surprised that, yeah, like the Jedi goes back for him and stuff, but like I was like, wow, he really just said, leave him behind. Like it's dark, and especially with the ending, yeah, it's just a really mature animation and story. And I definitely like that they give us just enough crumbs through the clues of these nightmares to where like, but we're also, because we're already familiar with this kind of story, that like we're kind of able to we're not caught off guard. We almost see it coming. Some people can predict it, but even those who don't see the ending, even if they don't predict it, like I feel like it does good enough storytelling to where you're in step with it, to where like right before the turn happens, you're like, oh, I've put the pieces together from what I've seen in Revenge of the Sith, the healing life essence powers of like Rise of Skywalker and stuff like that, and it's just a really cool story. And I'm just glad to see somebody right the wrongs of the Padme and Anakin story. Like there's that scene when they're in the balcony, and I think it's Revenge of the Sith, like, oh, I'm so in love with you. And like in this, all we get is them just talking about each other's family or whatever. Like in the flashback, they're like, oh, this is what's going on with my family, or here's where we are in life. And just, they never talk about their feelings for one another. It's just all in what's not said. You pick it up.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see a Star Wars love story that doesn't take the sledgehammer over here and that says love and smack you with it. It's a really cool story, and I think it's a cool one to end with. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Cam, wrap us up.
This one is just so freaking cool, man. Like this episode is just really, really cool. Like Christian, I too did not think I was going to be a fan of the animation style. Within seconds, it turned me around. I love the voice actors they got for this one were phenomenal, and like the voice work as well as the just solid performance just across the board for what they were doing. Whether it was the wormy, very like it's so Hidden Fortress with like the two peasant like swindlers and thieves like leading the way. It's done in just such a cool way, and it feels like it's touching on kind of like that Obi-Wan Countess story from the Clone Wars. It's touching on like a lot of aspects about it, about like this. It's clear like the Jedi aren't like something like whatever the situation is. He is not with the Order. We see later on like he's left the Order in order to pursue this goal. And I love it. I love the aspect of so much of this, the way that it like slowly pulls the string on the storytelling until like everything is left bare. It's done in such a really great way, and it's done in such a short amount of time. And like you said, like what Chris was saying, the subtext, the things that weren't being said. She never says I've missed you, but everything she says that she missed him. Everything she does with him says that she's missed him. He never says, I regret leaving in the first place, but everything he says without saying that he regrets leaving. It's the way that they tell this love story through subtext and through like a little bit of flashback, but at the same time, just like the one thing that kind of threw me off was like the bad guy at the end. like
in what way?
Just it's like I'm like, oh, her aunt, okay, betrayed her brother, betrayed her brother, the king or the emperor or whatever. Okay, all right, I'm on board. And then we see her, and I'm like, who is this Chad of a woman? She's just like this, like She-Hulk, just like, so you come here, like talking like a very like.
Did you watch it in English?
I watched it in English, yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't notice that. It seemed like fine to me. Like in the voice direction.
It's not that it's not fine. It totally fits with like what the character design is, and it's awesome. It's so freaking good. I just did not expect it. I was expecting like when it's like political machinations. I expected like a Palpatine like figure, like more lithe, more like conniving, not like a fucking brick shit house just like busting out of the wall, be like, I was using her and now forced you to kill her, but guess what? Like I'm like this like Randy, like Macho Man Randy Savage-esque Sith character was just like awesome.
And so that's the look. That's not the voice of that character though. They're like
I recall it differently.
Right, exactly. And that's like your portrayal of that character is
so different than what it actually is.
Is absolutely built on the look of this big, muscular, like woman, like character that has done whatever and is giant evil Sith. I didn't pull it in the credits there, but it's Lorraine Toussaint is the voice, who I recognized. She played V in one of the early seasons of Orange is the New Black, who was like kind of a rival, like head boss of the prison until I think like Red takes her out or something like that. I don't remember who ends up taking her out, but like she was basically like battling Red for power in Orange is the New Black. Very strong, poised, kind of powerful black woman kind of presence, and that's the voice that we get with this. But like it almost doesn't match the appearance of the character, which certainly in a rewatch as well was like, oh yeah, that is jarring.
Listen, have I reimagined the scene from X-Men X3 of I'm the Juggernaut bitch with this character? 100%. Like, listen, the time that it's been since I've seen this episode to now, and like kind of like going back through and like rethinking about it, I 100% have colorized her voice being much more like just like wrestler-esque.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. That being said, she's still a badass sounding lady.
Yeah.
And it's a badass looking character, just like this, just like, I don't know, like the lead up to it, it's like the expectation is you're going to see like this like sneaky, snaky person. And instead it's like I said, it's like a brick shit house, just like,
it's
bah! Like, ha ha!
It's not until you start saying, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not a Sith we typically see. Like, we typically see like Sith more like a Voldemort kind of like all the good in life has drained out of these people. So there's like only a shadow of like a person left, a la a Palpatine or Grievous, who's not Sith technically, but like Dooku or something. And so, like this just giant beast of a person is very like unfamiliar territory in terms of kind of that Sith aesthetic, but like has absolutely the machinations of a Sith in that, like,
oh yeah, for sure,
she is kind of like orchestrated this whole thing so that she can take this guy and corrupt him because she knows his weakness, and it's her own niece is his weakness, and in doing so she's also taken the city. Like I will give a shout out to like the bombastic last shot of the Star Destroyer like rising above the city and like overlooking her spoils. Christian, what were you going to jump in with?
Just that it's interesting. I didn't even realize it until Cam was saying like, oh, like what you expected was, and I was like, oh, for some reason with this, I don't remember, the Sith at the end being in any of the trailers. And so this whole time that they're talking about they're going to go investigate, it's hitting me now that I didn't have any expectations at all. I guess I was so interested in just the relationship between the characters. I didn't even stop to speculate what were we even approaching. And so when we did just see the Sith with, I can't remember her name, like I just took it at face value, like, oh, here we are. Like, yeah, it was just something as hearing Cameron describe like what he expected, I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't have any expectations.
Yeah. Are we sure at no point in time she mentioned something about the cream rising to the top? No?
I mean, I don't remember. Admittedly, though,
the answer is no, Trevor. That's a reference to a Macho Man Randy Savage wrestling promo.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
Frank got it right away.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, I was gonna say I like your version of this like redub where she comes in and immediately cuts a promo on everyone else in the episode.
Let me tell you something, brother. That's Hulk Hogan.
Randy Savage did a lot of the same stuff though. No
yeah. No, I mean,
especially when they teamed up to be the Mega Powers.
Yeah, exactly. Every 80s wrestler impression is a mashup of Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage.
Pretty much, yeah.
Anyway,
that's definitely what my my Ultimate Warrior impression is. Yeah. It's just me doing the deep voice. I'm like, I come from parts unknown.
Yeah. Cool. Any final thoughts on this before we wrap up?
I'll say that on the opposite end, like, yeah, even though I didn't put too much thought into who we were about to meet when we got to the end, I did have a lot of time after the credits rolled speculating, like, where does this story in particular go? He obviously doesn't want to be a Sith. You know, the difference between Anakin turning and this guy turning is that Anakin turned in the hopes of maybe one day finding the power that would save Padme, you know, before she died, you know, whereas this, like, it's already completed, you know, promise delivered. So is he gonna just, I wonder if it's I just kept speculating, like, is he just so shameful of what he did that even though, yeah, obviously he has an out here, she's alive, I'm sure if he were there's another version of the story where he just picks up the sword again and starts fighting and then wins. But like, I wonder what it is about the way it does play out, that with him going there. I don't think he wants to, but I wonder if it's because of his shame that he allowed himself to be tempted and manipulated, that he can't stay with, you know, who he wants, or what. I want, or if does he just have this weird sense of, my word is my word, and that's the kind of Jedi I am. You know, like, I spent so much time speculating on where this story goes. There's also afterwards.
The potential of the threat, right? Like, I brought her back to life, I can take it away. You know, all it takes is just like one elbow drop from the top rope, and she's back to being dead. I need to put in one more.
I hadn't thought about it, Christian, but you bringing it up, the headcanon that I have immediately created in my head is, he betrays her as a Sith apprentice always does, kills her, turns black and white, gets an R2-D2 droid, puts a straw hat on it, and then goes from village to village hunting as a Ronin, taking out other Sith as a bounty hunter.
Full circle.
Exactly, bringing it full circle. Like,
you see, it's like,
turns out that's poetry. The same character.
It rhymes.
Yes.
Like poetry, it rhymes.
Indeed. Well done, everyone. Well, that is gonna do it. So let's dive into the report card, where we grade these on a scale from A+ to F. I give these, I think, as I have with the last couple as well, A across the board. Even the ones that I don't like as well, still, like, everything evens out to an A across this series. Frank, how about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. Like, I was definitely thinking I would probably just give these 3 episodes an A as well. But yeah, like, the series as a whole is so strong, and it's interesting that even the episodes that are the strongest, like, I feel like even elevate the series so much that even the episodes I don't like as much, I'm still like, yeah, they were fun, they were good, they were, you know, like, I still had a good time. So I think I'd give it an A.
Yep. Christian?
I think these average out to about an A2. I was doing the individual breakdown in my head, and like, because of how slow the Elder is, I think I'd give it like an A-. Man, Lop and Ocho, though, I want to give that the S, like the, you know, anime S+. Like,
you're a substitute teacher, Christian. You know that's not a grade you can give kids.
I give the grades. I can give an S+ and 5 stars and all that.
Oh, I forgot you also
like,
you teach Photoshop.
Lop and Ocho is just so good. Like, I could see a timeline where Star Wars Visions wasn't a 9 episode thing. It was just this one single standalone story of like, hey, we have some time, there's a pandemic, we found the studio, and here's a 20-minute thing they did as a one-time. You know how they have like the Lego one-time Star Wars stories, like, and people just being happy with that, like, you know, like, it does, so it stands up, you know, on its own feet so well.
Yeah, so
that's what gets an S+, and just a solid A for Akakiri. It's just like the twist, the art, the unique art style that, you know, stands, you know, different from typical anime, and the very mature nature of its storytelling. Just all around great 3. Yeah.
Cool. And then Christian, or no, sorry, Cameron. I'm trying to figure out what Akakiri actually means, because I'm realizing, I don't know what that means.
It means red rain if you take the Akka and Kiri separate it.
Okay.
However, I'm not sure what they mean if they put them together.
Got it.
Because sometimes putting 2 separate kanji together gives a new meaning to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Akka usually means red, and Kiri usually means Kiri? Maybe mist?
If I'm remembering from the behind the scenes stock, I think Akakiri has to do with the red nature of his visions. The red, something to do with seeing red.
Fog. Kiri means fog, so red fog is what it is.
And yeah, per Google, It means custody, as in the connections and ties between people, referring in particular to the love between Tsubaki and Misa. And yeah, literally, Aka means red and Kiri means fog, referring to the violent visions that Tsubaki is plagued by throughout the short, in his red fog haze. Cool.
It's keep you awake throughout the
yes,
entire thing.
indeed.
Good things.
So Cameron, I assume like the last couple episodes, A+ across the board for you.
Yeah, A+. All of Star Wars Visions is an A+. What an incredible project. What an amazing time we've had last, granted, if we don't count the weeks in between, 3 weeks, that we've had talking about these awesome anime episodes made by these legendary studios and animators, and just like what an amazing opportunity for them to be able to work on a property like Star Wars. What an amazing opportunity Disney has had to do something that is just so out there and wild of an idea that you would like. It's something that you'd expect some regular person, some weeb on Reddit to say, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if they did Star Wars like an anthology, but like, with the animatrix?" Like, you would think that's like just some dumb thing that you see on the internet that'll never happen in a million years, but it freaking happened, man.
Yeah,
and it's awesome.
There we go.
A+. No question.
Well, some extra credit if you like this A+ content. You've got Star Wars The Bad Batch, Star Wars The Clone Wars movie, far from an A+ tier quality there. Star Wars The Clone Wars series.
Still better than the
Better.
Still better than the Clone Wars movie, though.
That's what I'm saying. The Clone Wars movie is far from A+ territory.
I thought you were saying the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones is the one I was referencing. Attack of the Clones is still the worst piece of franchise Star Wars has ever made. And I include that with the holiday special. Don't even get me started.
All right. You've also got The Mandalorian, the 2D Clone Wars series, Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars Resistance, Disney Gallery Star Wars The Mandalorian, the behind-the-scenes making of the Mandalorian series. And I will throw this out there, not on Disney+, but now that you've sat through all of the Star Wars Visions episodes, go check out the honest trailer for Star Wars Visions, where they kind of do a little, poke a little fun at each of the episodes in particular. And as they are wont to do, end up like renaming, coming up with like the new name for each one. And the one that they come up for Akakiri is literally Star Wars Visions. So shout out to the team over at Honest Trailers. Extra creditors, anybody watching anything else on Disney Plus? I imagine
I'm watching the behind the scenes stuff for Star Wars Visions.
Cool. Yep. Go.
So.
Definitely go check that out as well. The day that this goes live, Disney Plus Day, I will probably hop in at some point and try and watch Enchanted, because it's been a very long time since I've watched Enchanted, and that's finally coming to Disney Plus. So go check that out as part of Disney Plus Day, as well as whatever other things they're announcing. Shang-Chi is also officially on Disney Plus on the 12th, so you can go check that out as well.
I just remembered, or I realized when you said Enchanted, you're referring to the Amy Adams movie?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking you were referring to Ella Enchanted, which is the Anne Hathaway movie.
Yeah.
Which is arguably superior. I don't know. Just saying. Putting it out there.
I mean, you're very, very wrong. That's the
I don't recall Enchanted ending with Doko breaking my heart.
I was gonna say, doesn't that one have like fat bottom girls? It definitely has some. It has some Queen song.
It's Doko breaking my heart, and it's done beautifully.
The thing I remember about Ella Enchanted is when I worked at Sam's Club. So this was like, it was probably like 2004. When I worked at their customer service desk. It was the movie that they had playing on all the TV displays.
Hells yeah.
So I have watched that movie way too many times, but always like with the sound off, or like with, very low volume or something like that, and always being distracted by work. But like, yeah, that movie, I don't know why that was the movie that was it was the one that was on as the preview movie,
because it's a certified banger. That's why.
Yeah, just
such a good movie, man.
Yeah, because it definitely, whichever, like I remember that being like, I did not know that Queen song until seeing it in Ella Enchanted over and over and over and over and over again. So
I envy your 2004.
Yeah.
I was just an awkward sexually confused 14-year-old.
That's fine.
So.
Anyway, Cameron is wrong. Enchanted,
Not wrong.
significantly better.
No.
Specifically, it's not Josh Groban, but the song at the end that they do their little waltz to. Beautiful little number. And it's also just a great deconstruction of the Disney princess stories. Before, like,
oh wait, James Marsden's in Enchanted. Yeah, you guys should watch Enchanted. Support James Marsden. He's awesome.
There you go. As well as Adele Dazeem. Anyway, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for these Star Wars Visions episodes. It's been a pleasure chatting with you guys. You can follow all of my guests. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I really wanted to give a massive shout out to the Kind of Funny Extra Life. It's still going on, of course. The long term goal for the end of the year. This past weekend, I watched it and enjoyed a good chunk of their stream that they were doing. But there's so many great communities out there who are taking part in that Extra Life campaign. Although we're not doing it this year. Was just really more due to logistics and the fact that Trevor and I are both at new jobs, and
busy
so
lives,
much about it. Yeah, busy lives preventing it from being able to organize a concerted effort. So, but I want to give a massive shout out to the work they're doing over there with that. If you can, go check out the team member streams. They're all awesome individuals. We love them dearly. And yeah, just massive shout out to the work they're doing.
Cool. Yep. Echo all that. You can follow Frank at Relevant Jokes. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Frank?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to one of our other podcasts, the That Nerdy Side Show. The most recent episode is you and I just talking about some of the games we've been playing recently, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Forza Horizon 5. And you also talked about some Eternals reactions that you had. So yeah, that was a fun episode, and I recommend people check that out.
Cool. You can follow our guest, Christian, at Pixel Brave. Anything you want to give a shout out to, Christian?
Continue to follow me on Twitter. That's where I talk the most. Oh, I subscribe to Twitter Blue so I can post 10-minute videos. I'm so excited.
You subscribe to Twitter Blue?
Cam, Kingdom Hearts Cam said that he could post 10-minute videos, and I'm a videographer, and that's all I've wanted for the longest time. Is I don't really like using YouTube as a platform, and I've always had to make shorter cuts on my event videos, which at the end were cool. It helped me out, but I always kind of wish if I get off 10 more seconds for this song or something and so now that there's a really easy way for me to just get access to a longer video durations on my Twitter timeline, I went for it for $3 a month. Heck yeah, I'll do that.
I did not know that was a feature of Twitter Blue. I just saw them comment or sharing that, hey, you can edit tweets now. It's that's gonna be abused terribly, I'm sure.
Asterisk.
My tease that I randomly get thrown in there because I fat finger my tweets. No bother, not worth editing.
Yeah.
Asterisk. You can only post the videos that are up to 10 minutes from desktop. You can't from your phone. But
okay.
But yeah. So check out my Twitter. I will probably be posting more vlogs and such in the future. And I didn't talk about this last time, but I was in preparation for this, I was I guess I can talk about this. Well, first, I did make good on my promise. I did go ahead and relist a bunch of my old Pixel Brave videos from as far back as 2014. I didn't realize I had so many videos on my YouTube channel. But yeah, if you want to go and see any of my past work from events, many of which feature these lovely faces right here, Frank, Trevor, and Cam, you can see a bunch of them show up in my videos on youtube.com/pixelbrave. I barely passed that 100 subscriber threshold, so I got that custom URL, so that was cool. I took advantage of that when I had that momentum going, and hopefully we'll continue to post content there. Yeah. And lastly, I don't know why I felt like this was a private thing, but I guess it's kind of not that private. But part of my side gigs outside of substitute teaching is video editing for clients when I can. And recently, one of our friends, Joe Ruffler, who is an anime YouTube channel creator, he also has an anime podcast. I edit for him now. He has a YouTube channel.
Congrats. Yeah, no, Joe
Rough
Ruffles
Senpai
is awesome. Love him.
Yeah, so I edit his Shield Hero and his Doctor Stone anime reactions, and so that's what I've been up to. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Frank's
So if you want to,
Frank's old
so
roommate.
if you,
Yeah.
yeah, so if anyone listens likes anime, because we've been talking about Star Wars anime, and if you've seen Doctor Stone and Shield Hero and want to see me edit for Joe, check out Rough Senpai on YouTube. Yeah.
There you go. Cool. Yeah, it's wild to see like how Joe's numbers have just shot through the roof like in the last few years. Again, like I remember, sharing a PAX South hotel room with like Christian, Frank, 5 other people, including Joe, and probably even more than that. Back in 2016.
Yeah.
So wild to see how some of the community has started like just blowing up.
I have a really vivid memory from PAX South, him still being in New York, like living in New York, but he was out for one of the PAXs, and literally him and I talking about like the possibility of him moving to Texas, and him, thinking about that. And so it's funny to see, how things played out. Yeah, so many years later.
He's a dad.
And
yeah. Also,
and
he had a
Whataburger,
child.
Whataburger, more like Winaburger.
Which I laugh in my heart. I can't do the out laugh thing anymore because it's been, but that definitely gives me a smile every time I think about Whataburger or see Bill Zoker, who was the original poster of that joke. Whenever he makes a tweet, I think about that and laugh a good in the inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, yeah, you were saying his numbers are going high, and like that's something. He's at 96K and approaching 100K, and like we've already talked him and I about like, hey, if he hits that, he's gonna try to get a tattoo, and like he's already like, hey, we're buddies, I can film stuff, so I'm probably gonna film that tattoo process for him. So yeah, so if you want to see some of the work that I'm doing outside of events, check out Joe, Rough Senpai on YouTube if y'all like.
Very cool. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will give a brief shout out to our Let's Plays that go up on youtube.com/thatnerdysite on every Tuesday and Thursday. The last couple weeks has been a lot of me going through and finishing up our NES Classic Let's Plays, all the games on the NES Classic. Finally wrap that up here a little over a year into us doing Let's Plays. So you can go see that on our YouTube channel as well. Christian, did you want to circle back in with something?
Yeah, just that, like, speaking of, like, that nerdy site content, like, that's how I spent most of my day today, when I finish a video, I gotta export it and just kind of babysit my laptop for, like, an hour, and, yeah, there's nothing better than listening to you guys talk about Guardians of the Galaxy and Call of Duty, and listening to y'all talk about all the games that I never get a chance to play myself, and so just thank y'all so much for the content y'all make. It's fun.
There you go. Thank you so much, Christian.
Well, thank you.
Always appreciate, especially I always appreciate you when you let us know we screwed something up and we need to fix an upload. Always helpful because it's the only proof out there that anybody's listening to anything we do. Thank you so much, Christian, and thank you again for joining us. It's always a pleasure collaborating with you, and hope you're doing well. If you liked what you heard, please, once again, remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and may the force be with you.
And also with you.